to get her life together around this internet so we can get on. That was a game. Hey everyone, Happy New Year. This is our first time being back. Oh, wow. We've been gone for a really long time, huh? So, I am Dr. Ifetayo Ojelade, hanging out here in Atlanta, which is also Muskogee. Well, it's Muskogee territory, is also known as Atlanta, Georgia. And we are talking about Black books for healing today. They always tell me not to introduce them, but I think my sisters are amazing, so I think they deserve an introduction. And I am going to try to slow down so I say everybody's name right and what they do, because Black women, we got 50 million jobs. So maybe we didn't put a book on this list of like healing from your 6, 7, 8 jobs that you got, but maybe we needed to do that. First, up on the top on my right is my sister Estee Nena Dillard. She is a reverend. She is a priestess of Olokun and a queer sexologist, and she always keeps us straight because we can get all in our heteronormative kind of way of looking at the world, and she makes us look at another perspective. And so, welcome, Sister Esti. And then next to her is my sister, Dr. Corrie Claiborne, who is an associate professor of literature, of African American literature, at Morehouse College. Hey, Dr. Claiborne. Okay. And then looking all studious, right underneath her is my other sister friend, that is Dr. Kenja McCray. She is an visiting professor at Georgia Tech this year, Georgia Institute of Technology, sorry about that. And she is a historian. And right next to her is our resident anthropologist and hairologist. And then also lipstickologist. She gets me straight on the Pat McGrath. Is our sister Antoinette Waithe, who's got 50 million names. We call her Kaumba, Nozibele, and all kinds of other things. Hey sis, how you doing? So we are talking about Black books for healing today. And I thought we would do a round robin and just kind of jump in and see, like, what are your choices? Just to let people know, as you are listening at the end, definitely stay towards the end, because we are going to, hey, there's Michelle Herman. She said, hello. Hey, thank you for coming, Michelle. We are going to, at the very end, we are going to post a list of, it's going to be books, but we've also got YouTube and Instagram links and all kinds of stuff on there. So definitely stay to the end so you can get that list of our recommendations, and we will have that link posted in the chat. But whoever wants to go, what are your books? Like, tell me, maybe 2 books that you would choose.
Well, I'll start, but I'll also start by talking about what wellness means to me, because I think that explains like my choices a little bit more. Because a lot of times if people read, whatever it is, just a book by Zora Hurston, or we were talking about Alice Walker earlier, or poetry by Maya Angelou and Nikki Giovanni or whatever, they don't think of that as necessarily engaging in a healing practice. And I argue that it is, because even this sort of act of reading, I think, is self-care, because it means that you're taking time, you're devoting your time to something that you want to do, right? That I'm not saying reading reports for work works in the same way, but definitely choosing whatever it is, whether it is history, whether it's poetry, whether it's a nonfiction book that is self-help, it can work towards your healing. And it's interesting, I just mentioned Alice Walker, even though she wasn't initially on my list, the book In Search of Our Mother's Gardens, she profiles all of these women, Zora Hurston included. This one woman I forgotten I heard about her, but I did hear about her, Rebecca Jackson, who, during slavery, although she's free, she decides she can't read or write, but she literally prays to God and gets so frustrated because she can only dictate letters to her brother if she wants to say something, and he would always change what she had to say. So people would get the letters and be like, oh, you said this and this. And she was like, I didn't say that. So she would get mad. and get frustrated. He was like, well, so what you worried about? What I wrote is better than what you were trying to say anyway. And she goes up and she literally is like visited by God. And instantly he gives her the ability to read. Like, this is what she says in her narrative. Like, and she said that ability to read changes her whole world. Like, it changes her whole worth. It's like she prayed to God to make her worthy. And by allowing her to read, she then became worthy. And I was like, oh my God. But even if we do not have those moments of like instantaneous literacy, understanding that you don't have to have anything filtered through anybody else. You don't have to worry about somebody else's interpretation of something, right? Have you ever asked somebody, well, what did you think about this book? And they might say, oh, well, it was horrible, da, 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 da. But then you read it yourself and you're like, no, I thought it was real great. I thought I found all this other kind of stuff. That ability to take things in and decide how they're going to fit in your life, I think, is instrumental. All right, that being said, the two books I'm going to talk about now are not necessarily literature, even though I do this as a job. If you want some more literature, meaning poetry, prose, not sort of fiction, plays, any of that, I can give you that. But I'm going to give two things that are actually self-help, kind of also autobiography, but I found really useful that I read recently. And the first one is Tabitha Brown's book, Feeding the Soul. And partly what I like about this is its recipes. It is family history and lineage. She's from North Carolina, so a lot of her stories about growing up, I really responded to and I understood. And people who don't grow up in the country might not have that same feeling towards her, but I thought it was sort of very useful. And it is about finding joy in whatever ways that you want. And a lot of that means if it is joy for you to sit and watch these kind of, Instagram lives, Facebook lives, then that is feeding your soul. If you want to, and she doesn't try to act like she necessarily has all the answers. She just says, this is how I fed myself. And her tagline is, because it's my business, right? Like, so whatever you do, if that's what you want to do, it's your business. Don't be worried about anybody else. And I feel like that is something that's very useful. And if you get the audio book, actually at the end, she talks about her mother and just the importance in her life and how she really had a long struggle to get to where she is. And I think that's really important because I think people are not automatically who they are, right? Like you think, and I think students think this, that, oh, people, you just wake up like this, as Beyonce says, but nobody ever does that, right? Like it is a process and a journey. And I think especially in these times where we've had to slow down, it is very useful because her success came during the pandemic, right? That it is very helpful for us to think that whatever it is, when it's our time, we are still going to manifest that. So that's one. And to hear her mother talk on the audiobook after she talked about her, she had tapes that she kept. I thought that was so special because my mother also passed away. So it was almost like I was hearing my mother talk about what I was going to do in my life too. So that's one. The other one actually is a last minute pick, which is about getting organized. Now, you might think, well, what does this have to do with the healing? I cannot tell you, because when you're home, like during this pandemic, I realized partly when you're forced to be in your house, not knowing where stuff is or feeling like you're crowded in something or having a closet that's crowded, even though you ain't wearing no clothes or you wear the same outfit over and over again, is so frustrating. And this woman, Nikki Boyd, she's from Charleston. She has an organizing business, which I probably need to hire her, but she gives like really good tips about things about just why you have clutter in the first place. And like when you start, just like I had 55 a million Apple cables and I only got 2 devices. And so my question is, why do I have all these cords? Do I need all these cords? And instead of me trying to get mad that I pull out my desk drawer and all these cords come out, why don't I just give away the rest of the cords I don't need? I was like, or keep one in my car in case I forget it or whatever. take one to work, but if I got 7 more, then I need to give them away. And I felt like that was a very necessary thing. And I think a lot of people like Marie Kondo on Netflix. However, I think that I appreciated a Black woman sort of talking about like sort of these same things about understanding what your stuff means and doing something about it. So that's it. And then if we have time, I could come talk about some of the books behind me. That's it.
Okay. And I just need to point out, so I put that book under style, and I'm loving the earrings. We didn't do anything about like Black women and accessories.
Oh no, yeah, I'm gonna come back and talk about my whole Black outfits that I have, my seagrass bracelet. This is from Carla's Boutique. It's got leopard on it. You know how I love an animal. That she's down the road. These are from a woman from Greece, but she was dark enough. I think she was Black. I'm gonna claim it. And then Jolie Noir. This is at Target, which, you know, Ife had a discussion about this, but this is actually a Black business. You can go on joliexnoir.com. Their sweatshirts on their own site are $90. At Target, they are $25. So I will just say, the way my bank account was set up, I'm still supporting them, but I could not necessarily buy their stuff directly. They're from Atlanta. So I have everything Black on. So go ahead.
Okay. All right.
And makeup.
Who's next? Who want to share? Go, Nozibele.
Okay, I'll go next. I think it's really important to talk about, you know, like Corrie started out, what wellness means to us. Because I think when we talk about wellness, a lot of times people just focus on mental health awareness, you know, and when you say that, they don't talk about financial wellness. They don't talk about sexual wellness. They do not talk about political wellness, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's really a thing. So when we talk about wellness, I look at all of those aspects of spiritual wellness, and I take all of that into accountability. So with that in mind, one of the books in terms of making sure I stay balanced and spiritual wellness is...
Oh my goodness. I just pulled that because I saw they in our group they posted those cards. You know, the sister has a thing of cards. I don't think I even realized the book was on there. Okay.
I'm really liking this book because I know when I looked at the list, I know some of the books that I had submitted was like way back in the day, like Value in the Valley and Jambalaya. I was like, I know I read something since then, so I had to update it. But the reason I put those books down there because I think transitioning from a Christian upbringing to a more traditional African lifestyles, those books were really, really accessible gateways and helped me make that transition into the spiritual path that I'm on now. And especially like Jambalaya, because Jambalaya related the things that we did, you know, naturally or organically as African Americans here in the United States. It didn't make it seem like it was anything, you know, different or new or spooky. I was like, oh yeah, my grandmother did that. Oh yeah, my aunt did that. Oh, I remember it happening. So it was a good transition. So that book is always a joy to me. It's always inspirational, especially, let's see if Dr. McCray can chime in. The one that when I'm really need some inspiration, I don't know if everyone remembers this, but earth, water, fire, and air. Within me, all things are there. So I always go back to that poem. So that one is a really good one. In terms of, I guess.
Wait a minute, I don't know what that is. Wait, which one is that? I don't know that one.
That's the chant for self-esteem.
From Jambalaya.
Yeah, from Jambalaya.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Earth, water, fire, and air. Within me, all things are there. The flesh on my bones is like the earth. It's soft and firm and full of worth. The blood that flows within my veins is like the ocean, rivers, and rains. My spirit soars and takes me higher. This is where I keep my fire. My breath and thoughts are like the air. I can do anything and go anywhere. Water, fire, and air. Within me, all things are there. And so I pledge to myself power, love, strength, and wealth.
Power, love,
Thank you, Dr. McCray, for the signing addition. But I just said all that to say is that poem really, even though I say it now, is something that really resonates within me, and it really, really touches my soul. So that book will, no matter how old it is, that book will always be number one for me, and also that one. So those are the ones I'll start off with.
Thank you. No, one of the things that Dr. McCray had us do, she pointed out, like, let's identify the classic text, because we did have some like old school stuff. But that was like really impactful, because I know that I put Debrina Jackson Gandy's book on there because I just loved it. And so we had the classics and then kind of the new school stuff that we're reading right now. So I think it is important to have that balance. So Dr. McCray, you want to go next?
Sure. I was surprised. I had a memoir on my list. I recently read a historian's memoir. So I read Nell Irvin Painter's Old in Art School. So it is about when she retired from being this, fabulous ranking historian, and she wanted to go back to art school and fulfill her dream of being an artist. So she actually went and got another bachelor's degree and another master's in art. And she just really started all over trying to pursue this career. And she has lots of nuggets in terms of perseverance and persistence and just not taking no for an answer that I really, really, really enjoyed, because a part of my self-care involves quelling my anxieties. And I really love it when someone can give me advice, on how to quell these anxieties and this imposter syndrome and all this kind of stuff. So Old in Art School, that was my first recommendation, and I listened to it on audiobook. So I don't have the book to hold up. And then I just got my self-care ritualist journal in the mail. It is by a sister named Waithe DeVoe, and it has been really helpful. I love it. It's got lots of great prompts in it, and I would definitely recommend it. And I recommend it on our syllabus, our self-care syllabus. There was a space for decks of cards. And so I actually love working with my Slay Your Inner Critic deck of cards. And you can get that on Etsy. And they're just really good affirmations. I also use those as journal prompts. And I learned to journal from going to a healing paradigm.
I appreciate the plug, sis. I appreciate the plug. Sister Estee, Mawasi, what you got for us? I see. As you're getting ready to talk, let me just acknowledge Alethea put a book in there. She put Daniel Black's "Don't Cry for Me," and I thought I saw another one. I'll find it. But go ahead, Estee.
Dr. Daniel Black's "Perfect Peace" is good too. I definitely recommend that.
Actually,
around Black family dynamics.
No, go ahead.
I was just adding. That's why I'm like, it's so many books to name and to list. But I was adding Perfect Peace by Dr. Daniel Black as well. Just Cry for Me was just released this month, so definitely go get that too. I know it's available on Amazon. But yeah, so definitions of wellness, I think, have been well reviewed. I think what I would add is I really like thinking about myself in kind of the old metaphor of a pie. And for me, wellness is really about making sure that I'm giving attention to each piece of the pie, that all parts of myself are being attended to, so that my spiritual self and my sexual self are not getting more attention than my physical self or my emotional self, that my family self is in balance with the practical things that I need for my own, spirit. and being able to attend to all of those things and to do it in a way that balance doesn't always mean 50-50 or that every piece of the pie gets 33%, you know, but it does mean that in the ways in which they need time, attention, and focus, that I'm attending to that with intention and with clarity. And so I think a lot of the books that we've worked to compile and resources that we work to compile span things that may not overtly talk about healing, but I think that definitely point us into doing that work of wellness and balance. So to that point, I'm going to share one book that I really love that is called I Ask for Intimacy by Renita Weems, Dr. Renita Weems, which is an older book. I actually don't know when this was published, but I really love this book because Dr. Renita Weems does a good job of she's actually a Hebrew Bible scholar, so an Old Testament scholar in the Christian tradition, but she does a really good job of writing these stories about her own intimate challenges in context with kind of her Christian experience and narrative, but not from a place that is preachy or churchy or that you even need to be Christian to identify with and find good resource in. Because she talks about complexity in a way that I feel like it can be hard to tackle. So I really recommend this one. I really love it. Another one that has a similar name that is foundational to me, mine is like all torn up and in pieces, is In the Spirit of Intimacy by Subunku Some. I really, really, really recommend that book. I really love that book also because much of the way that Elder Subunku writes is in very short sentences. It's not even written in paragraphs, or it's more like divisions versus chapters. And so it's very easy to digest. It's very easy to apply, and everything gets covered, from relationships to personal stuff to queerness and African interpretations of how to approach that, rituals, where to start with rituals, initiation, what initiation means, all of that gets covered. I really think if there's any one book I would say, I would definitely say starting with that one. So I'm gonna stop there because I have like 4 books sitting here now.
Estee, though, put the first one that you talked about. I know The Spirit of Intimacy was it's in the syllabus that we're calling it, that we're going to hand out with all the resources. But the first one, put that one in the chat too. So I want to get that one too. That one's a great one. Okay, I'll do mine. And it was really hard for me to just pick 2. And I don't even know, like, if I had more time, I probably would have picked something different. Except for, well, actually, okay, so let me start off with this one. This is Ida B. Wells, A Sword Among Lions. And probably everybody here that's on with me has heard me talk about this book. It took me a year because it's like 600 and something pages to read it. And so I'm used to doing a lot of audiobooks now. So just taking time to sit and read is something that I have not been doing, but I enjoy so much. So to me, that goes back to what Corrie was saying at the beginning in terms of like literacy and reading and that being self-care, because I've always just loved reading. And so for me, it's a combination of audiobooks and doing reading physical books. And one of the things that I struggled with in that particular book is it goes into very extensive details by Paula Giddings. And it goes into very extensive detail in Ida B. Wells Barnett's background, because she was a champion in terms of trying to stop lynching in this country. And she wrote very extensively about lynching. And so Paula Giddings goes into a lot of the details of the lynchings. And I would try to read at night and I would have all this anxiety and I couldn't read. I had to put it down. And I would just say, you know, that's not part of my like before bedtime reading. I can't read about lynching. And then finally, I had this self-care moment because I really wanted to get through the book. And Spirit just said to me, you don't have to read the lynchings. Just skip past that part. And it was like this aha moment. And as soon as I had the moment of, okay, as soon as you get to the word where they start describing the lynching, just go on and go past that, figure out where they start going back to the story. And then I I finished it like quickly. And to me, it's a reminder that we can engage material that is important, because Ida B. Wells' story is so powerful, but we don't have to be re-traumatized by it. So if you can't read lynchings, which most people probably can't, if you can't read the trauma of enslavement, most people probably don't want to, relive all of those details, then you don't have to go through detail by detail. But what I will tell you is, when I finished the book, I'm sure I texted, called one of y'all and said something. I literally took the book and I had it by my bed, and I slept with it near my head the night when I finished, because I just felt so honored by reading Ida B. Wells' story. It is so powerful. I mean, she was brave beyond anything that I can ever imagine. Just when I understood how she would show up in spaces where they had just lynched somebody, and she would be investigated and talking and having conversations, and she didn't waver at all. She was very maligned because she was considered like just too radical and too militant, and she didn't care. And so that was just a powerful book for me to read. To me, it was transformational. The other one, which I've been looking for this book for a long time. I've been looking at it, and it came out last year. It is Black Women's History, Yoga History, and it is by Dr. Stephanie Evans. She's here in Atlanta, and I have been messing with yoga, pretending like I'm gonna do some yoga, kind of practicing yoga for over a decade now. Got really intense in doing it, and I always had this discomfort, because the way that yoga tends to be engaged in our country is, it feels very colonial. It feels like a theft from Indian folks lots of times, and the spaces can feel racist sometimes, like yoga studios can feel racist. And so I was really struggling with that over the years. And then finally, I happened to get this book and start listening to it. And I was like, oh, wow, the way that she talks about yoga and Black women in yoga. And she's talking about like Eartha Kitt. She's talking about
Harriet Jacobs, and
Harriet Jacobs, that's not the one. And
Rosa
the front of the butt wouldn't get
Rosa Parks.
Thank you. Rosa Parks, 40-year yoga practice. She's talking about all of these Black women. Yeah. Rosa Parks practiced yoga for 40 years. 40. She's talking about all of, thank you. So when you read the book, now there's some parts in there where Corrie, the literature professor, takes a knife and, cuts necks. But if you can
look here, that, you are making me sound like I was not. I am still reading it. I have not finished. I have not passed the judgment. Okay.
But it is important, because what she talks about is Black women's engagement of movement and actual yoga practice. And she talks about it from her perspective, is from an African-centered perspective, like the ways in which Black people have historically, from enslavement, Black women have engaged in yoga and meditation. And I think it is brilliant what she did with it. So those are my two recommendations.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get that book.
You would like it. I mean, I thought it was amazing what she's doing, because she's doing research and she's predominantly looking at Black women's narratives and memoirs, and she goes through people's memoirs and she's showing the ways that Black women were engaged in movement and taking care of their body, which directly kind of contradicts this idea that Black women, we don't exercise, we don't take care of our bodies or things like that. And then even kind of challenging myself, because I started this out and saying I've been playing with yoga for over 10 years. And look at how I did that. Like, all of y'all know, because, there's been times where I'm like, well, I can't come to that because I'm going to yoga class. So I haven't been playing. I've been doing yoga for well over a decade, probably like 15 years now. But just even the ways in which sometimes we may talk about the things that we do to care for ourselves. sometimes that gets dismissed for Black women, and I think that it's important for us not to do that. Go ahead, Nozibele.
And I think that's really important because I've always been like, in terms of yoga, like, oh, I don't like that. And, not really for it, not really against it. But I think about 5 years ago, one of my girlfriends gave me a yoga pass to the Acme Yoga Studios, and it was for anything for the whole. I can go at any time. I can take any class, and I was like, I don't like yoga, man. When I went there, I was up in that camp all the time. They had full moon yoga. I was up in there. They had afternoon. I would drop the girls off at school in the morning and go to yoga and then come back in the evening and do it. And then I realized how good it makes you feel. Because after you do those stretches, you can feel the circulation moving in your body, and it's such a good thing that, I stopped because of COVID, but I was like, you know what, that doesn't have to stop me. So I think around July of 2020, I started to do yoga from an app that I do for strength and flexibility. But yeah, you can't sleep on the yoga. Yeah.
And I think that's one of her points too, that, yoga has like 8 limbs or 8 paths, right? Like, and so service to others is yoga, right? And I think that what we always, breathing, there's all kind of karma and dharma and all this other kind of stuff that is specifically, Southeast Asian in nature. I'm not saying it's not in some ways borrowing culture, but I think that when you understand how women that were enslaved, who had this practice of breathing, of meditation, of understanding that they couldn't have their body just sitting there. Like Harriet Jacobs, she hides out in what she calls a loophole in this attic for 7 years, trying to be, at least see her kids, but evade this white man who was trying to terrorize her. 7 years, right? And it's this idea that when she gets ready to run, she was like, I haven't moved much. She was afraid to come down to even, because she thought the kids would, if they see their mother, they're gonna be like, Mama, whatever. Or she didn't want everybody to know. And so she stayed up there and, just had people bring her food and do all this other kind of stuff. And so when she gets ready to decide she's going to run, it's this recognition that she has to get her body ready for freedom. And I'm like, you know what? And so very conscious. In there, she talks about, Black people who might have gone to the white church, but they also the next day would go out into the woods and do the ring shout. Like, she talks about that. She's very conscious of all the ways in which, and working for people, helping other people get free, doing all this stuff. It becomes part of this practice that, so when Stephanie Evans talks about that, like, absolutely, that's yoga. And then so when Rosa Parks is worried about the Scottsboro Boys and Reese Taylor and NAACP and making sure everybody gets free, you're like, that's also yoga. So why am I surprised that she would get on the mat? Because how could you go through all that? How could you stay in that struggle for as long as she did if she didn't have something that grounded her and that sort of pushed her forward? So yeah, but I understand why people don't like the stretching part, but I think that but the stretching part, I think, also gets them able to do some other stuff too, right? Like, makes it like they can sort of flow into activist work and other kind of things that people have to do.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of books, what other things that you recommend? Because I saw all kinds of stuff. There was YouTube channels, Instagram, all kinds of stuff.
Okay. Now, I think a while ago, I think I texted you all. It's a filmmaker in Atlanta. Her name is Omalara Lama Aina. And she did this wonderful interactive thing. It was called Wash Day. And I took the girls with me. And it was an art exhibit. It was a film showing. It was a poetry reading. It was, a song. All of this was going on at the same time. So what we did when we walked in, she had little strips of cloth that you wrote a letter of love, of hurt, of your regret to your mom or your daughter or whatever, and you put it in a little basket. And then they would take those little cloths and hang it on a line. You remember back the clothesline back in the day in the South? So they had all these things that was, hanging on a clothesline. So you would go around and you would read the little different things that people wrote to their moms and their daughters or their grandmothers. And then they showed the film. When we went in that film, my daughters cried because it was just a really short film. It was maybe about 5 minutes. And it was dealing with a grandmother, her daughter, and her daughter's daughter. And the daughter and the mother was having some type of disagreement. And, of course, the grandmother brought them all together. And in the end, after the movie, there was a part where they did a live poetry reading. And they had a lady that was there that was washing clothes. And every now and again, she would get up and she would make a sound and record it. And then the sound ended up being a song. So she would get up and she was like, la, la. And then she'll go back and she'll start doing the thing of washing the clothes, and then she'll come back. And can I tell you, even thinking about it now, I teared up so bad. I was crying like a baby because it was such an emotional release. Because the poetry, the lady was doing a poem to her mom, and then you can see how recognize your mom as a person. And then it becomes a minute where you start thinking about, okay, I'm seeing my mom as a person, but now I'm seeing myself as my mom. And then the door, man, we were out there boohooing. It was so beautiful. And I wish it was a one-time only thing. And it was there and it was gone at the end of the day. But that was the most powerful and a beautiful release, in terms of healing. And just watching that, and all the women, even the men were there. In the end, after the end, it was like a good sigh. So if you can catch it used to be on YouTube. I was trying to find it. If I can find a link, I'll give it to you, at least to the short film.
Yeah,
I'd say we haven't focused.
Hold on for a second. And Jimmy, go scoot over a little bit because you behind the logo.
Okay.
No, the other way. I don't know which way to take you to go. No, the other way. Whatever the other way.
That's where I was.
That way.
Okay, so we haven't focused as much on brothers in this particular talk. So I want to bring up at Cure Games. I don't know if anybody follows Cure Games. Yeah, Esti, you do. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I love his Instagram pages. It's KIERGAINES, and I'll put it in the chat. Just lots of nice little daily tidbits on mental health and emotional self-awareness. But then he also is telling a story of just loving on his family. So I really, really like his Instagram page, and just for little happy reminders throughout the day, check Cure Games. And then I actually listened to an audio book that was kind of like part audio book, part podcast, part musical performance, and that was by Black Thought from The Roots. It's under Tariq Trotter, and it's called 7 Years. It's really nice.
Oh, yeah.
So I recommend those. Yeah.
I saw those. What about other folks with Instagram? And there was a couple of Twitter things, but I'm not a Twitter person, so I couldn't do
Twitter is
nothing
whatever. Usually, what I like about Twitter is you link something else, and you can't really do that on Instagram, where you can say, "Oh, go to the bio, whatever." I'm not doing all that, so it's got to be something I could just click. But what now I love in iOS, you can take a picture of something, and then the text becomes live. That's what I do. I just screenshot it and then hit the link. I was like, "Oh, see, y'all thought y'all would keep me in Instagram, really?" But now, yes. Yep. When you take a picture of something, you could go on the picture and the text becomes live. So for example, if you take a picture of a book, that's all you have. You could screenshot it. When you go in your photos, you could click on it. It's like this little line thing, and it'll take all the text out, and you could just put it in a document. I was like, my students are like, they're probably using that to cheat, honestly, because they could probably be behind somebody about whatever. But it's like, it is like I said, for me, who's not an Instagram person and just likes to go to stuff immediately, that's a good thing because you break beyond that wall. But anyway, what I was gonna say, that's not so much Twitter, but although what Twitter has, which I like, because I like audio, right, more than visual stuff, and maybe it's just me, and especially this pandemic, and even people here, you know, we've watched so many verses and Instagram lives and and plus you're on Zoom every day. That sometimes I need like a slight distance, like the visual is too much. And so I can listen to things better, like kind of like how you like audiobooks. So podcasts, even though everybody and their mama got one, like I can't explain. I even have one.
Like when we do live.
It was an accident. I didn't even mean to have one myself, and then I ended up on one. So there you go. But it was for the AUC, so I'll put that in there. And so yeah, Black Past, Black Futures on the AUC website, all popular podcast platforms. I don't have that many episodes yet. I got to get back to it. But anyway, podcast. And what my favorite podcast really, there are two. One is Super Soul Sundays. You remember all those shows that Oprah used to do? They put them out in podcasts. Like you literally, every guest she had, every show she's ever done, all these people who are quote unquote spiritual leaders, whether you think they are or not, they all have, she's like, reduces down into podcast episodes, and a lot of times she'll come back at the end and reflect on what that means today. Like, so all the stuff she did with the Yanla over the years, all the stuff that she did on, and I didn't realize what priceless archive that is, right? Like even in the kind of things she used to have Toni Morrison on there, because you know at least 5 of her books were Oprah Winfrey picks, and just to go back and hear that or to do that, I think that has been one of the most useful things for me, even though a lot of that I heard the first time. And the other is Dr. Tama, Homecoming with Dr. Tama, which is going to be a book, but she has a podcast. And what I like about her is that they're short, usually like 30 to 40 minutes. I think she has a book coming out related to this. But it will be like something simple, like, do you talk too much? She'll take a just topic that I feel like, okay, well, maybe I do talk too much. And then she just has a way of making you think about it. It does not like, okay, you're wrong, or if you don't, you have to do this, or it's just like, okay, let's think about how you do this. Are you an overachiever? Are you, do you try to make excuses for people when they don't necessarily need excuses? So she, I first heard about her because she was a guest. She did the sermon at Impact, where I go to church. And then I didn't even know anything else about her, but then I saw she was popping up on different podcasts. So hers is really good. There's just a lot. Anika Noni Rose, who's in Lovecraft Country, she hosted Being Seen. If you see that, it's really good. I mean, there's just so many. There's such good content for FREE, right? That, which is one thing that, as opposed to books, you don't necessarily, although we have libraries, but it's so great to be able to just listen to snippets of things. And then a lot of times, if you're interested, they will point you to books or further resources that you can read. So I'll just mention those podcasts. I'll probably think of some more that I didn't think about. So.
Okay, I'll jump in. I think probably my favorite person on IG right now is Nedra. I think her last name is Tawab, but she's a therapist. And I just really, really love her content. And it's very well-rounded. It's very much so resourceful, but also like it's not much like why I like here. You can tell that it's got some clinical foundation to what's being shared. There's another one, another Black woman, Terry McMillan, that I have the same recommendation, because you can tell like she did this whole thing about attachment styles that I thought was super dope. I also really like shorts and TED Talks that are on YouTube. So I out of my own just kind of interest have found this rabbit hole of Black love shorts. So there are all kinds of Black love shorts that I love to watch on YouTube. Refinery 29 does a good job of making sure that they do ones on queer folks. Where it's usually like 7 or 8 minutes, but it's a couple talking about something Black love related. And I think a lot of that has spawned from the Black love show that now has its own app and network and all of that. And so now it's kind of trending in the kind of content people are putting out. So I definitely recommend that too, especially because pandemic partnership life is real. Amazing, wonderful, real. But the other thing that I was gonna add to TED Talk wise, there's a TED Talk that I really love that a Black woman did. I'm blanking on her last name, but her first name was Chloe. I have to look it up and I can link it. But she talks about shifting from thinking about purpose to thinking about wellness in pursuit of your career. And there's some other good things because TED Talk has done a good job of letting Black people have their say. But that for me is one that I often will refer people to, particularly when trying to reframe and rethink. I'm also going to offer a shameless plug because spiritual care is what I do. So I have content that's on Twitter, that is on IG, that's coming to TikTok in a couple of days. So I definitely am a person who creates content around spiritual care, offer rituals. I'm also hosting a virtual retreat on 2/2/22. So if anybody wants information about that, but my work is to be a wellness resource to folks. So I definitely would name myself as well.
You're on mute.
I was gonna say go ahead, but we got 4 minutes left, so I do want to pay attention to time. But Mcmillan, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to ask Esti. You said your retreat is on 2/2/22.
Yes, Tuesday. It's a Tuesday, so it's a very special day. So I wanted to stick to the dates, but it's gonna be from around 6 to 8 because I know it's the evening time. But I can share the link. It's live on Eventbrite. And if there's a concern about cost, you know what I mean? Like the work is for us, so just let me know. But there is some reciprocity.
Is it on the 22nd?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 2/22. Okay.
I wasn't saying the year. I'm sorry. I said 2/22, meaning.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
February 22nd. That Tuesday.
I would say, I could think of lots of Instagram accounts, but we didn't talk about is any kind of and this might be my thing because I did talk about yoga. So like outdoors things. I like outdoor Afro. That's one. Girl track, I think is a good one if people want to just have encouragement around like walking, and Black Girls Run is another one. And there's one actually that I put on the list, and I know Beza is about to post the list. So if you're listening, then definitely connect with that whole list of resources that we have. There's another one that's like called The Anxious Black Girl, which I like because anxiety is something that I think gets overlooked in terms of Black women. And her stuff is comedic, but talks about anxiety. And so I think it's pretty cool. So yeah, that's Anxious Black Girl. And then you said Flowers and Froze. Oh yeah, Flowers and Froze Outdoor Adventures. I think there's a ton of stuff. So
Corrie, one, and go ahead. There's one about this girl. She goes out and stays in parks in like Georgia and other places. Like she just goes out and hikes. Do you know who I'm talking about? I don't know her name.
I've seen that on Black Travel Feed, I think.
I don't even know, but I was like, oh, maybe I should go stay out in the state park. But then I was like, oh, my kid. But there are moments where she makes it look so freeing because she would be by herself and just go out and just like talk about staying in nature. And I was like, oh, but that just like I enjoy her watching her, but I didn't know if anybody else followed it.
I think it's fine to stay in the nearby lodge and just spend the day.
You know what I mean, girl? Like when I had my dad's camper, I was like, I literally can roll this whole thing with a shower and a stove and a bed to pull out and cable all out into the woods, right?
And weapons, because we all know that's where all the stuff happens.
Right. You know, I do not want to be that person.
It happens in the woods. That's enough to keep Black people away.
She went out in the woods and she
worry about in the city. We got to worry about it in the woods too. Nah.
Anyway, today, you all, I know that my colleagues have a hard stop, so I want to stop us right on time. I apologize 1,000 times. We're going to blame it on Mercury being in retrograde. Nozibele says we're attacking Mercury all the time, that we did not start on time, so we didn't have as much time to talk about this, but we will certainly revisit this conversation about Black Books for Healing. So Beza has put the link, so thank you, Beza. She put the link in the chat, so if you have missed the link, then, or if you won't miss the link because it's in the chat, so definitely click on that link. It's got a whole PDF. It's several pages of all kinds of stuff. And if you have ideas about stuff that you're interested in that you think we should have added to the list, then definitely put that in the chat. So we are here next month. We are here every first Fridays from 12 to 1. So definitely come back and hang out with us. Thank you, guys.
See you later. Thanks for coming.